I never thought of myself as a paranoid guy. Suspicious? Maybe when it came to weird leftovers in the fridge or the sudden appearance of credit card ads in my name. But in matters of the heart, I trusted Emma. She was my wife, my partner in every sense of the word, and the person I'd been with for the last 12 years. We had what you might call functional marriage. Nothing movie-worthy, just two people figuring out life together. We lived in a nice neighborhood, had a decent house, no kids by choice, and enjoyed our Sunday morning rituals. Coffee, crossword puzzles, and the latest murder documentary. Emma worked in HR for a big tech company downtown. Long hours, lots of meetings, corporate jargon that made my brain want to melt. I was a freelance graphic designer, meaning I spent a lot of time at home in my office/man cave, doing logos and branding for small businesses. Things had been normal, or at least they felt normal, up until about a month ago. Looking back, I can't believe how blind I was. Maybe I didn't want to see it. It started small like all these things do. Emma became a little more polished, I guess. She always looked good, but suddenly she was spending a lot more time on her hair in the morning, and her perfume game went from subtle to, hey, I'm walking into a magazine ad. At first, I chalked it up to her new manager. Maybe she was trying to impress her way up the ladder. I even complimented her once or twice. You look great, babe, I'd say, and she'd smile, distracted, and mumble something about running late. Then there was the night she came home late without her wedding ring. Claimed she'd taken it off to wash her hands and forgot to put it back on at work. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I remember thinking, don't be that guy. Don't turn into one of those insecure freaks who checks his wife's location like she's a UPS package. But the thing that finally got under my skin? A receipt. Yep, of all things, a folded-up receipt tucked inside her jacket pocket when I went to hang it up. She never left stuff in her pockets, so it stood out. It was from a fancy cocktail bar downtown, the kind of place she'd always said was too pretentious. 2 drinks, 1 appetizer, a table for 2. When I asked her how her night was, she said she and Megan, her coworker, had stopped for a drink after a long meeting. I asked casually, where'd you go? She said some place near the office, but couldn't remember the name. Right? I didn't say anything else. I just nodded and smiled like an idiot. But something inside me clicked, like a shift. That feeling when you realize you're not just paranoid. You're being played. I didn't bring it up again. Not that night. Not the next. But I started watching more closely. Listening. The late-night texting she tried to hide under the dinner table. The sudden password on her phone. The quiet tension in her shoulders when I walked into the room unannounced. Something was happening, and I was going to find out what. The day everything shattered started off like any other Thursday. Gray skies, coffee brewing, Emma running late. She shouted something from the bedroom about forgetting her umbrella again. I told her it was probably under the passenger seat of her car. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and was out the door in less than 5 minutes. That kiss? It lingered longer than usual. Not in a romantic way, more like a guilt offering. It had been 2 weeks since I found that cocktail bar receipt. I hadn't said a word about it since. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for. Confirmation, maybe? Proof beyond a dinner receipt and change behavior? Or maybe I was waiting for her to slip up. Turns out I didn't have to wait much longer. That afternoon, I got an email notification. One of those auto-generated ones from our shared Google account. Emma forgot to unlink her phone from our shared photos folder. A holdover from when we went on a road trip last year and wanted all our pics in one place. Normally, it just sat there, dormant, untouched. But that day, there it was. A new photo had been uploaded. It was blurry at first, some guy's arm across a restaurant table. Then another shot, clearer this time. Emma, leaning into him, smiling. The background looked like the inside of that same cocktail bar from the receipt. Her hair was curled, her lipstick fresh. That wasn't a work event. That wasn't Megan. I sat there staring at the photo, clicking back and forth between it and the timestamp. Taken last night. Wednesday. She told me she had a late virtual conference with her overseas office. She said she'd be home late. She even logged into a Teams call from the bedroom while I watched a game in the living room. I remembered the faint sounds of office chatter through the closed door. So how could that photo exist? My chest felt tight, like someone pressed their palm into the center of my rib cage and just leaned. I closed the laptop, stood up, then sat right back down because my legs had gone numb. My first thought wasn't even about confronting her. It was, how long has this been going on? And then came the denial. Maybe it was just a friend. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe it was an old photo she'd forgotten about. Maybe. I grabbed my phone, opened our Google account, and clicked the location history. My stomach dropped. The little red pin said it all, downtown. Not at work. Not at home. Not even on the same side of the city. I don't remember standing up again, but I did. I paced the room, hands in my hair, muttering half-formed thoughts like some caged animal. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something, but mostly I wanted it to not be real. When she got home that night, I said nothing, just like every other night before it. But something had shifted. My silence wasn't passive anymore. It was loaded. I watched her every move. She put her purse down, kicked off her shoes, asked if I wanted Thai or pizza. I said whatever she wanted. She didn't look me in the eye. The next day, I made a decision. If this was real, and every sign pointed to it being very real, I needed to be sure. Not just for closure, but because once the words left my mouth, there would be no turning back. I went digging. I know how that sounds. Like some creep rifling through his wife's things. But if you've ever been on the edge of discovering a betrayal, you know it's not about dignity. It's about truth. Her laptop was in the office. She used it for work mostly, but sometimes I'd seen her open it late at night, laughing at something before quickly closing it if I walked by. I opened it. Her password hadn't changed. Email first, nothing suspicious. Slack, just office chatter. Then I checked her personal Gmail. That's when I found it. A thread with a guy named Aaron G. My heart pounded as I opened the thread. The first message was from over 3 months ago. He had replied to one of her Instagram stories, something about her hair looking great. Her response was playful, flirty. I kept scrolling. More messages. Late night emails. Plans. Inside jokes. References to places they'd gone. And then the photos. Selfies of them in what looked like a hotel room. Emma sitting cross-legged on a bed, wearing a robe. Him shirtless, smirking into the mirror while she leaned on his shoulder. My hand was shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the laptop. I forced myself to keep reading. I needed to know. I can't stop thinking about last night. One of his messages read. I know, she replied. Me neither. I haven't felt like this in years. That was it. That line broke me. I snapped the laptop shut and stumbled back. I sat on the floor, hands over my face, trying to hold in whatever was trying to come out. Tears, screams, whatever. I don't know how long I sat there. It could have been minutes, it could have been an hour. But at some point, I pulled myself together and went into our bedroom. Her scent was everywhere. Her lotion, her shampoo, her perfume on the pillow. And all I could think was, she brought that scent to someone else. The next 2 days were a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I walked around the house like a ghost, avoiding her, barely speaking. She noticed, of course. You okay? She asked once, touching my shoulder. I nodded, just tired. Lying never came easy to me. But now, it felt like breathing. I knew I had to confront her. I knew I couldn't live like this. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I needed more than just texts and photos. I needed confirmation from her mouth. The lie. The hesitation. The guilt. So I waited. That Sunday, she said she needed to run errands and meet up with Megan for coffee. I kissed her goodbye and watched her drive off. 10 minutes later, I was in my car, following her. She didn't go to Megan's. She didn't go to any coffee shop. She drove to the same hotel where one of those photos had been taken. Parked. Walked in. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I sat in the parking lot, numb, watching the entrance, waiting. 45 minutes later, he came out. Same guy from the picture. Tall, maybe early 40s, beard, smug look like he knew he had something valuable. A few minutes after he left, she came out. She didn't look guilty. She looked content, like she just had a massage, or a nap, like she had no idea her entire world was about to collapse. I drove home before she did. Pretended I'd spent the morning watching TV. That night, as she brushed her teeth in the bathroom, I stared at her reflection in the mirror. She caught me looking. What? She asked, laughing a little, toothpaste foam at the corner of her mouth. I almost told her right then, but I didn't. Instead, I said, nothing, just thinking about us. She smiled. Good thoughts, I hope. Yeah, elite. Good thoughts. She walked past me, and I watched her go. Every step she took was heavier than the last. I knew what I had to do. The moment was coming. I just needed to pick it. I waited until Wednesday. I picked that day because it was the middle of the week, and neither of us had any social plans or deadlines. It gave me room to breathe, a clear night to talk without her using work as an excuse to escape the conversation. I spent that whole day not working, just thinking, rehearsing how I would start. I kept writing things down and deleting them. Nothing sounded right. Nothing felt satisfying. Eventually, I gave up trying to make it clean. There wasn't going to be anything neat about what I was about to do. I wasn't aiming for drama or a fight. I just wanted the truth to be said out loud between us, where it couldn't be avoided anymore. That evening, after dinner, I offered to do the dishes, told her to relax. She went to the living room, scrolling her phone, probably texting him, maybe even planning their next meetup. I stood there drying a plate, feeling the tremble in my fingers get stronger every second. I walked into the living room and sat across from her. She didn't even look up. "We need to talk," I said, louder than I intended. She blinked and looked up from her phone slowly, like she hadn't heard me the first time. "About what?" she asked, resting the phone beside her, but not putting it down completely. "I followed you on Sunday," I said, my voice level, not angry, just flat like I was reading off a grocery list. Her eyes didn't widen. Her mouth didn't drop open. Instead, her face stayed perfectly still, and for a second I thought maybe she didn't hear me. "You followed me?" she asked, her tone even, but I could see her grip on the edge of the couch tighten. "You said you're going to meet Megan," I continued, "but you drove downtown, parked at the Riverlight Hotel, went inside, and didn't come out for over an hour. 5 minutes after you walked in, he came out. Same guy from the photos you accidentally uploaded to our shared account. Same guy from the emails on your laptop. His name's Aaron, right?" There was a long pause where neither of us moved. I didn't even blink. She leaned forward slightly, as if to say something, then pulled back. I watched her face change. First confusion, then a quiet calculation, like she was trying to figure out what angle to take. She opened her mouth and closed it again. "I was going to tell you," she said finally, her voice small but not shaking. "I just didn't know how." I didn't reply. I wanted her to keep talking. "It didn't start the way you think it did," she went on. "He reached out to me after seeing a post I made months ago. At first, it was just conversation, someone to vent to about work. He was funny, and he listened in a way that felt, I don't know, safe, I guess." "You don't get to call that safe," I interrupted. "Not when you've been lying to me every single day while sneaking off to meet him." "I'm not denying it," she said quickly. "I'm not going to lie anymore. It wasn't just emotional, and I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen. I slept with him. It happened more than once." My chest tightened, but I didn't flinch. I looked right at her and nodded. "So how long has this been going on?" "About 4 months," she answered without hesitation. "It started slow, like I said. The first few weeks, it was just texts. Then we met for coffee. Then dinner. Then that." I swallowed hard. "Do you love him?" She didn't answer right away. "No," she said finally. "Not really. I thought maybe I could. I think I wanted to. But it's not that." "Then what is it?" I asked. "What the hell are you looking for that I'm not giving you?" "It's not about you," she said. "I know that sounds like bullshit, but it's true. You've been good to me. You're consistent, you're dependable. You do everything right." But I felt stuck. Like everything in my life was mapped out, every day the same. I started to feel invisible. I needed something else. Not someone else. Just something. I leaned back and rubbed my eyes. "So, you cheated because you were bored?" "I cheated because I wanted to feel something different. Not better. Just different," she said, and for the first time, her voice cracked a little. "You could have told me that. You could have said something. We could have tried to fix whatever was broken," I said. "I know," she whispered. "I was afraid. I didn't want to blow up our life just to admit I was unhappy. So instead you blew it up by fucking someone else," I said, and I didn't shout, I didn't even raise my tone, but the weight of the words landed hard. She nodded, eyes now glistening but not crying. "I'm not going to ask for forgiveness. I don't expect it, but I don't want this to be the end. I don't want to lose everything we have." I stood up. "You already did. You just don't want to admit it yet." She didn't try to stop me as I walked to the bedroom and closed the door behind me. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, wondering when exactly the person I trusted the most became the one who could lie to my face every day and sleep next to me like nothing was wrong. I knew then that whatever came next would be harder than this conversation. But at least the lies were over. Now, all that was left was figuring out what to do with the truth. The next morning felt hollow. She was still asleep when I got out of bed, and for once I didn't care if I woke her up by moving around. I took a long shower, not because I needed to, but because I didn't want to look at her. I needed space, real space, and not just the physical kind. When I walked back into the bedroom, she was awake but didn't say anything. She sat up, looked at me like she was waiting for some kind of signal. I gave her nothing. I got dressed, grabbed my keys, and left the house without a word. I had no plan. I just drove. By lunchtime, I was sitting in my car at a parking lot near the park, thinking about all the ways I could make her feel what I felt. I thought about telling everyone. Her parents, our friends, maybe even her job. Let them see who she really was. Let her feel the shame of it. But every time I leaned toward that idea, I backed away from it. It felt satisfying in theory, but not real. Revenge sounds like it fixes things, but all it really does is pass the pain along like some bad virus. I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted her to hurt, yes, but I also wanted to be free from it. I didn't want this betrayal to keep defining everything I did next. I spent the rest of the day making a list. Not a revenge list. A practical one. What we owned together, what we didn't. Bank accounts, passwords, bills, the mortgage, the dog, everything. It wasn't anger that drove me now. It was clarity. I saw everything for what it was. We had built a life together, and she had taken a sledgehammer to it. I couldn't undo that, but I could control how I walked away from the rubble. That night, I came home around 7. She was sitting at the kitchen table, food untouched, eyes red but dry. She looked at me like she'd been practicing her speech for hours. "Are you leaving?" she asked. Not immediately, but after a long silence passed between us. I sat down across from her and laid my phone on the table. Eventually. Not tonight. Not this week. But yeah, I'm leaving. She didn't nod. She didn't cry. She looked like she expected it. "Are you filing?" "I haven't decided yet. I'm talking to someone tomorrow. I just need to know what my options are. I need to understand what I'd be walking into." "Okay," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't want to talk about feelings anymore. I didn't want to rehash what she did, or why she did it, or how she thought she could keep it from me. I just wanted to move on. So I laid out the facts. I told her I had made a list of everything we needed to sort through: money, property, the lease on the car, the rest. She nodded, took the list without asking questions, and didn't try to touch me or close the distance between us. She knew it was over. I could see it in her face, the way her shoulders dropped, the way she didn't fight. That was the only moment that stung a little, because it confirmed she had made peace with losing me before I even asked the question. That night, we slept in the same bed, but it might as well have been 2 separate countries. No words, no movements, just silence. I stared at the ceiling for most of it, counting the minutes, thinking about what the next month would look like. I thought about getting a storage unit. I thought about who would keep the dog. I thought about calling her sister and telling her everything. But I didn't move. I just laid there. Over the next few days, we became polite strangers. She cooked, I cleaned. We talked only when it was necessary. There was no shouting, no passive aggression, no begging. It was clean in a way I didn't expect. I started keeping my things in the guest room. I stopped wearing my wedding ring. She noticed. She didn't say anything. We were waiting for the same thing, just on different terms. I wanted freedom. She wanted forgiveness. I wasn't ready to offer her that, and maybe I never would be. On Sunday, I met with the lawyer. He was calm, professional, didn't push me toward any decision. He laid out the steps. The paperwork, the timelines, what I'd need to provide, what I'd stand to lose, what I'd keep. It wasn't as scary as I thought it'd be. Just another process. Just another way to move forward. I left the office with a folder and a quiet sense of control I hadn't felt in weeks. When I got home, she was waiting in the living room. Her hands were in her lap, her phone off for once. I sat down, and she didn't waste time. "Are we done?" she asked, her voice steady. "I think we are," I said. "I don't hate you. I'm not going to ruin your life. But I'm not staying." "I don't blame you," she said. I waited for her to ask me to reconsider, to say something emotional, anything that might complicate this clean break. But she didn't. She just nodded and looked away. That's when I realized she had already mourned this. Probably weeks ago. Probably before she ever kissed him. She had said goodbye to me in her head a long time ago. I was just catching up. I packed a few things that night and told her I'd be staying at a friend's for a while. No theatrics. No scenes. She helped me carry one of the bags to the car. We stood there for a second, neither of us sure how to end it. "Take care of yourself," she said. "You too," I replied. And then I got in the car and drove away. No looking back. No music. No deep thoughts. Just the road and the silence I'd been needing. I didn't know what would come next, but for the first time in a long time, I was in control of what came after her. It had been 2 weeks since I left the house. I had settled into my friend Jordan's spare bedroom, and between work calls, meal prepping, and trying to avoid conversations that tiptoed too close to personal, I kept myself occupied. Jordan didn't ask for details, just offered his couch, then the spare room, and a fridge stocked with cheap beer and frozen pizza. He'd been through a divorce 5 years back, and knew better than to offer advice unless it was asked for. I appreciated that. The quiet was helpful, but it didn't fill the silence that started to grow in my chest the longer I was away from the life I had known for over a decade. I wasn't second-guessing anything. I just realized how empty a room can feel when you're the one who asked for space and finally got it. The last conversation hadn't happened yet. Not really. We'd ended on a civil exchange by the car, but it hadn't felt like a goodbye, more like a break between scenes. I needed to speak to her one more time, not for answers, I'd already gotten those, but for closure, or maybe to make sure I hadn't imagined the worst parts. I texted her and asked if we could talk. She replied a few hours later with a simple "okay," followed by time and place. We agreed on a neutral spot, a quiet diner we used to go to back when we were first dating, the kind of place with worn-out booths and bottomless coffee. When I walked in, she was already there. She looked tired, not in the way someone looks after a long shift, but like she hadn't been sleeping properly. I didn't feel anything sharp seeing her again. No anger, no longing, just a dull curiosity about what she'd say now that the storm had passed. I sat down across from her. The waitress came, dropped 2 menus, and we both ignored them. "You look okay," she said, her voice a bit forced, like she wasn't sure what tone to use with me anymore. "I am," I said. "You?" She nodded, then shrugged. "Trying." There was a silence that felt like it should be filled with something meaningful, but neither of us moved to fill it. We just sat for a moment, sipping the water that had already been poured. "I'm not going to fight the divorce," she said, eyes down on her glass. "I talked to a lawyer. It'll be straightforward. No contest." "I figured," I said, not because I was assuming the worst, but because there wasn't much left for her to fight for. We had no kids, no messy inheritance, just memories and shared bills. "I never wanted it to end this way," she said. "I know that sounds pointless now, but I need to say it." I leaned back. "You had a dozen ways it could have ended differently. You picked this one." "I know," she whispered, then looked up. "Do you hate me?" "I don't," I said. "I probably should, but I don't. I think part of me still remembers the version of you I married. That person doesn't deserve hate. The version of you who lied and cheated. I don't know her well enough to waste energy on." She looked like she wanted to cry, but was holding it back. I didn't want her to cry. I didn't want sympathy to cloud anything. I just wanted the truth. "Was he worth it?" I asked. "No," she said without pausing. "I thought he might be. But the second it was real, I realized he wasn't. He didn't know me. He knew a version of me I was pretending to be. And the moment he saw who I really was, it stopped being exciting. I felt like a stranger in my own skin." I didn't respond. There was nothing in that statement that changed what she did. It was just another layer of explanation to something that didn't need more detail. "I don't want to erase what we had," she said. "I don't want you to look back and think it was all fake." "It wasn't all fake," I replied. "But it ended that way. That's the version I'm left with, whether I like it or not." She sighed, reached in her bag, and pulled out a small envelope. "There are a few photos in here. Some of the older ones. You can toss them if you want, but I figured you might want them." I took the envelope, but didn't open it. It felt strange holding something from a time when I thought we were happy. I wasn't sure if I'd look at them later or just toss them in a drawer and forget. "Will you stay in the house?" I asked. "For now," she said. "I'm looking for a new place." It's too quiet, and everything in it feels like it still belongs to both of us. Yeah, I said. It's strange how fast something stops feeling like home. We didn't stay long after that. I paid the check out of habit, and we walked out together. The parking lot was empty except for our cars. She paused before getting into hers, turned to me one last time. "Take care of yourself," she said again, just like she had before. "You too," I replied, not because it was polite, but because I meant it. I didn't want her to suffer. I just didn't want to be part of her story anymore. I got into my car, closed the door, and sat there for a minute before starting the engine. That was it. No dramatic goodbye, no emotional collapse. Just a final exchange between two people who had lived through something and knew they weren't going back. It wasn't satisfying, but it was real, and real was the only thing I needed now. The apartment was quiet when I got back. Jordan was out, probably at work, or maybe grabbing drinks with friends, and for once I was glad to be alone. I took off my shoes and tossed the keys on the kitchen counter before dropping onto the couch. The envelope she gave me was still in my jacket pocket, and I debated whether or not to open it for a while before finally pulling it out. I sat there with it in my hand, not moving, just staring at the seal like it might burn me if I ripped it open. Eventually I did. Inside were 5 photos, nothing dramatic, nothing romantic, just snapshots from years ago. One from a trip to the mountains, another of us at a friend's wedding, 2 more from birthdays, and one where we were sitting in the backyard with our dog, smiling like everything was perfect. I didn't feel angry looking at them. I felt like I was watching strangers from another life. That guy in the photo was someone who believed in something that didn't hold up. That guy thought love was enough. I put the photos back in the envelope and left it on the coffee table. For the next few days, I tried to settle into something that resembled a routine. I worked during the day, went on long walks at night, and avoided talking too much. Jordan asked now and then how I was holding up, but I gave him short, honest answers. I wasn't okay, but I wasn't falling apart either. I ate what I needed to, showered, responded to emails, and stared at the ceiling when the lights went out. It wasn't a dramatic breakdown. It was just a long, slow recognition that everything had changed. The hardest part wasn't being alone. It was realizing that the person I thought I would grow old with was now just someone I used to know in full detail. One afternoon, I got a text from her sister. She asked how I was doing, and I hesitated before answering. I didn't know how much she knew or what Emma had told her, but I decided to keep it neutral. I said I was taking things day by day. She replied that she was sorry, that she didn't understand what Emma had been thinking, and that if I ever needed anything, I could reach out. It was kind of her, but it felt strange accepting comfort from someone tied to the same bloodline as the person who had betrayed me. Still, I thanked her. I wasn't holding a grudge against the rest of her family. They weren't the ones who cheated. They didn't lie to my face. The divorce paperwork came in the mail a week later. I read through everything carefully, signed where I needed to, and mailed it back without ceremony. There was no court appearance needed, just signatures and a notary. It was all business now. The end of something that had once felt so personal was being finalized through envelopes and filing fees. I didn't feel relief or closure, just a steady emptiness that didn't change no matter how much I distracted myself. I started thinking about what came next, not in a dramatic way, but in small pieces. Did I want to stay in this city? Will I keep working the same job? Should I get my own place or move to another town altogether? These weren't questions I had answers to yet, but asking them felt like a step. For the first time in years, I wasn't planning anything with someone else in mind. I wasn't coordinating around another person's schedule or making room for anyone in my decisions. It was just me now, and that was both freeing and unfamiliar. One night, I went out to get some fresh air and ended up at a bar a few blocks away. I didn't go there to meet anyone or drink away my thoughts. I just wanted to sit somewhere other than Jordan's couch. I ordered a drink, kept my phone in my pocket, and watched the people around me. Groups of friends, a couple clearly on a first date, 2 guys arguing about sports. It all felt distant, but interesting, like I was observing the world without being part of it yet. The bartender made small talk, and I answered politely, but didn't extend the conversation. I wasn't ready for casual friendliness. Not yet. As I walked back to the apartment that night, I realized I hadn't thought about Emma for a couple of hours. Not her voice, not her face, not the lies. That moment mattered. It was the first sign that she wasn't going to occupy every corner of my brain forever. The pain was still there, but it wasn't controlling me like before. I could breathe without feeling like I was missing something essential. The next morning, I got up early and went for a long walk. I stopped at a diner, had coffee and eggs, and watched the sun rise through the window. Nobody texted me. Nobody was expecting me home. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I didn't mind the quiet. I didn't know where I was going from here, but I wasn't looking backward anymore. I didn't need a dramatic conclusion to all of it. I didn't need to find some deep meaning in what she did or try to reframe it as a lesson. I was just learning how to live without her, one small, slow moment at a time. Maybe that's all healing is, learning how to exist again, piece by piece, until it doesn't hurt as much as it did yesterday. Maybe that's enough.